year, I like to do a little experiment where I leave my Sims game unpaused and running on its own for 24 hours straight just to see what happens. And I don't mean 24 hours in game, I mean 24 hours in real life. And in this video, I'm gonna show you how I set it up and then walk you through everything that happened in those 24 hours. I literally have a spreadsheet of every single exciting thing that happened throughout the entire experiment. So this year I decided to have my Sims live in the world that comes with for rent because the vibes of this area are really nice. When picking the lot that I'm gonna use for this, I literally go through and I listen to the ambient sounds of every potential lot that I'm thinking about using. Because if I'm gonna leave this running on my Twitch stream for 24 hours straight, you wanna have some nice vibes to the area. And this lot in particular, as you can probably imagine, has some really nice ambient noise. You can hear a little bit of the water, you can hear like some tropical bugs and birds. The view is beautiful, and there are boats that come through driving past in this water. And then once I pick out a lot, we have to build a house. And the kind of house that I use for this isn't really like a normal house. I basically build a really long and skinny house with a bunch of chaotic different rooms. And then I use these custom content windows from Little Dika. The reason I use these is because they're basically just a hole in the wall. So when I put them in there, you can see everything inside, but there's no like glass blocking your view. We do have regular non-custom content big windows, but you can see the difference. This glass is a little bit less transparent, so it kind of obstructs your view a little bit that way. Plus, they've got all of these window frames blocking you. And in the winter time, these windows freeze over, so you can see way less. But when I use these windows, it looks open, but the game thinks that it's closed. It doesn't affect the weather or anything. Your Sims aren't really smart enough to know that it's open. And that way we can see everything unobstructed. This is the house that I built for this year's challenge. I've called it the Sims Unpaused dollhouse on the gallery, and obviously it's marked as including custom content because of the windows. And this is what it looks like when you first place it. So it's a little bit strange looking. I had a few priorities when I was making this. Number one, I wanted to put as many random activities in this house as I possibly could fit because I want to be able to watch my Sims using them. I want to watch them play guitar. I want to see them use the hot tub. It's fun when they play basketball, when they dance, when they use the video games. It's just more interesting to watch if they're actually doing stuff and doing different stuff. So I put a ton of random activities in the house. I also put a ton of different woohoo spots in the house because we really want the Sims to woohoo. I'll get to that a little bit more in a second, but I have things like the sauna, I've got showers, I have closets, there's a woohoo blanket, there's a hot tub. I put woohoo spots everywhere. And then lastly, and probably most importantly, I also put some death traps in this house because we also want Sims to die. So I have things like the cowplants, I have a telescope, the sauna can kill them, possibly the rat could get them. There's grills to start fires. It feels kind of wrong to build a house that you're intentionally trying to kill Sims with. And when we do this, we're kind of trying to balance it, right? Because you want the Sims to die, but you also want them to be happy enough to woohoo. So I have like a mix of both danger and good stuff in here. I'm gonna stop and show you around really quickly, starting with the ground floor. So in this room, we have like the bedroom. I've done this experiment a few times now, so I've learned a few things about Sims autonomous behavior. Because for example, you might think like, oh, you should put double beds because then they could woohoo in the beds. But actually, once somebody sleeps in that bed, they have claimed it and then nobody else will use it after them. So say you have like Bob Pancakes and Nancy Landgrab and Stanley Humphrey all in a house. If Bob Pancakes claims that bed, Nancy and Stanley will not sleep in it and they will not ever woohoo in it. I've tried, trust me. In previous years, I've tried really hard to put a Murphy bed in hopes that like somebody might die from it, but in reality, just nobody ever used it. It just sat there completely untouched, taking up space. So I've resorted to just putting these random single beds. It's purely just there because they're gonna need to sleep to fix their needs. I also put a crow in here because I was kind of hoping it might kill somebody. So I just tucked that over in the corner. And you can see how weirdly shaped the rooms are. That is just because of how I want to be able to see everything. Because when we actually start playing this and letting the game run, I'm gonna leave it from this camera angle. So everything has to be visible from this view. My face cam won't be there either. So when we look at it from this view, you can kind of see why I've put stuff where I did, and also why some of the rooms are a little bit smaller than others. If you put the bunk beds too far back, suddenly the top bunk gets cut off and nobody can see it anymore. That's also why it's sunken down on one platform level. And then in here, here we have the baby room, which is kind of strange because we're not starting off with any babies. But I am gonna have Risky Woohoo on really high, which I'll again explain in a second. So I wanted to pre-populate the space with stuff that the kids could use. That includes things like the cribs, we have doll houses, there's a changing table, we've got bassinets, toddler potties, high chairs. And then over here, this way, we have the bathroom, which I have pre-made to look really disgusting and moldy. It has 2 toilet stalls, there's 2 showers, the Sims can woohoo in these showers, plus a 3rd open shower because then you can watch them shower more, which sounds really creepy when you put it like that, but I don't know, it's nice. They like just stand there. And nobody gets embarrassed by either of these showers, and of course they don't get embarrassed by the toilet stalls. I did put a bathtub in here because the kids will need one. Sims do get embarrassed if they get walked in on while they're in the bathtub, but luckily it's not the only way for them to bathe. I do have one sink and a mirror in case maybe they'll like try and practice speech in the mirror or practice acting in the mirror. And then to take up some extra space, I put a yoga mat in here so we can watch them do yoga. And I also put a speaker so they can have like creepy, gross, moldy bathroom dance parties. This is the only moldy place in the entire house, and it's not actually moldy. These are all just decals from like For Rent. Last year, I tried to make the house actually moldy using the mold lot challenge, because I thought it would be kind of fun if somebody died from mold. But what I realized in actually using the mold lot challenge is that it made everybody dazed and nobody was woohooing when they were dazed. And that's like a by design feature of the game. And of course that makes sense, but I also want them to woohoo more than I want them to die from mold. So I ended up not using the mold lot challenge and I just pretended that it was moldy in this bathroom. This year I also decided to do ladders instead of putting staircases because last time I had a lot of Sims just getting stuck on the stairs. They would like carry the babies halfway up the stairs and just leave them. And if the baby can't walk, they can't get back down the stairs. So then the Sims are just stuck on the staircase. So I instead decided, you know what, fine, the babies can stay trapped on the first floor. So we only have ladders this time. The ladder will take you upstairs into the kitchen, which is kind of like tropical vibes. We have a mini fridge, they've got a stove, there's a pizza oven, and I also put a couple things like the cereal box and the cookie jar. Those are new from the kitchen clutter kit and Sims can grab quick meals from them. I did that because in previous years, we've had a lot of trouble with the people not cooking and like almost starving. And yes, that seems funny because like they might die from starvation, but it takes multiple in-game days to die from starvation, and they would usually end up eating like close to the end of it. They'd finally be like, you know what, fine, I'll cook something. So it just results in them being uncomfortable for like 2 days, refusing to do anything funny or woohoo or anything, and then finally eating and not dying in the end anyway. So I gave them some options for quick meals just in case. I'm kind of hoping they will catch this on fire because the pizza ovens are quite flammable. And then they have a small table and a little computer in here too. Off to the left, this is what I'm calling the party room. So we have like a closet to woohoo in, there's games. I put a bonsai tree. I don't actually know if they're gonna use that, so we'll see. They have a microphone, they have a video game floor thing, there's a dance floor, there's darts, there's a piano, there's a TV, there's a bar, and it's all lit up kind of funny. A lot of this weird stuff that you're seeing is just so I can hide extra lights. Like this light looks like it's floating. That's because I wanted to have the VFX, but I didn't want to have the light blocking anything. So I kind of like stuck it outside. You'll see once we're actually watching the clips back, but it looks weird from this angle. But remember, we're only gonna see it from this angle, so you can't tell. And then over here, this is what I'm calling the indoor beach. So they have a hot tub, they've got a punching bag, this is a splash pad. I don't know if they'll use this water balloon bucket, but I'm gonna try. They've got a towel, a woohoo blanket, some toys just in case, because childish Sims can play with them, and also a grill inside so that hopefully it catches fire. I put those big open windows in the back too so that we could see more of the water and like get to enjoy the vibes of this world. And this is where we can see the boats going by, which is kind of cool. And then upstairs again, we have like this weird ladder because this one has a smaller top to it, so it was less intrusive for this room. This is like the living room. I have a guitar, I've got cross stitch, there's like some party games, there's a treadmill, another speaker for more dancing, another TV, the rat. This is a mural that they can paint, and then this is also a card table. Over in here, I have another shower, a meditation stool, a cheer mat, and a sauna. I like this stuff here because it's pretty low, so it's not intrusive when you're looking at it. Like you can't even see it really, that it's right there, but it uses the space nicely so they can stand in front of the sauna. And then outside on this like top deck, like terrace almost, we have a woohoo bush. I put some hopscotch. Obviously we have the telescope. This is a foosball table. I have a soccer ball. There's a lounge chair for them to relax. Another grill with a table to put finished stuff on. Bees, 2 cow plants, and a basketball hoop. Now, this is all kind of subject to change because I am babysitting the stream over the course of the 24 hours. So if I discover like, oh, you know what, actually nobody is using this item, maybe I could switch it out for something else, I'll come back and like edit stuff throughout the time. So I'll point out when we had to change things and why, because this didn't exactly work perfectly. I had to make a couple adjustments, but first I want to show you the Sims so you can meet the cast. When I'm doing these unpaused streams, I want all of the Sims to be really recognizable from afar because it's going to be kind of small when they're in the house. So you want to be able to very easily tell who's who. Of course, first we have Stanley Humphrey. He's in a weenie suit, so it's really obvious that he's the weenie Sim. You're not going to confuse him for somebody else. And I gave them all some special traits to try and encourage them to do different things. So Stanley is chased by death, romantic, and a love bug. I made all of them like every single activity and also like all the romance styles just to try to encourage the woohoo even more. We also have the money mouse in this household because I'm doing this as part of my big charity event. And I made up this creature called the money mouse that tries to force people to donate. If you give $150, I will send you this card and these stickers of the money mouse. But it's kind of like a stream meme. So I'm using the rat costume from My First Pet stuff. This Sim is also chased by death, but he's mean and glutton. So again, trying to get some like different varieties of social interactions between them. Oh, and by the way, today and tomorrow are the last 2 days of my big fundraiser. So if you want to come by, I'll link my Twitch down below. I'll link the fundraiser down below. I would really appreciate you coming to hang out with us. I've got giveaway codes and like all kinds of fun stuff going on. Then I have the snowman, who we affectionately termed the Yeti, and she is active, a dance machine, and a bro. I totally forgot this costume even existed. This is from the free holiday pack. I don't know if I've ever used it, so this was my chance. Then I made a Sim called Clown Sim, who is just in a clown costume. She also has blue skin, which is kind of fun. She is clumsy, childish, and also cringe. Then we've got the fairy princess, who I put in the fairy costume from Spooky Stuff and then made into a spellcaster. And of course, a fairy pack leaked a couple of days after this stream happened. I realize that makes me look suspicious, but she wasn't even my idea. People in chat wanted me to use this costume. We were kind of like memeing about how everybody wanted fairies. Obviously, nobody had any idea that fairies were actually going to come. But it's not really that much of a surprise because everybody's been asking for fairies for so long. So like, of course the Sims team's gonna make them. We just didn't know they were gonna make them now. But I made her a spellcaster hoping that she would do some like magic power stuff. I cheated her to have all of the spells unlocked. Unfortunately, she never once did one single spell. So you wouldn't have even known that she was a spellcaster, but we knew that she was a spellcaster deep down. She's wearing the fairy costume plus the prom crown from high school years, and I made her romantic, a music lover, and also neat, because it's nice to have at least one Sim who is neat that will help clean up around the house. Then we have Alien Fish, who is, as it sounds, an alien and a fish, wearing the catfish costume from Lovestruck. Alien Fish loves the outdoors, is chased by death, and also is a grouch. Grouch Sims like to be mischievous. That's one of the reward traits, so I was hoping he would like pull pranks and stuff. He didn't, but I was hoping he would. Then we have Seymour the shark. This is custom content, this shark costume. My friend Little Dika made it for me. It's a reference to this thing that I had for my fundraiser last year. It's like a little shark hand puppet, and we named him Seymour, but like sea, cause like, you know, he's in the sea. And I would say, Seymour donations. It's so dumb. It really is so dumb. But Seymour is a child of the ocean, so he'll hopefully use like the hot tub and stuff more. He's nosy, because they have that kind of funny binocular interaction, and also lactose intolerant, so he'll hopefully pee his pants more often. And then last, we have Eggplant Vlad, which is just Vlad, but in an eggplant costume. And he is a geek, romantic, and also a dance machine. So he'll hopefully use the video game stuff. He'll dance a lot in his really creepy costume. And I'm honestly really sorry that you have to see this, because it is very jarring looking at this man dressed like this. It kind of freaks me out. I kind of want to get out of cast so I can stop looking at him. But those are the Sims that we started out with. Some of them will die and we'll have to bring in some replacements, but I'll walk you through that later. I'm gonna show you now how I set this up, because beyond just building it and making the Sims, I had to do a few other minor adjustments. First things first, every single Sim has to get teleported inside the house because there are no doors, so we have to like lock them in. Who is that? Oh my god, it's the Yeti, but she changed. Anyway, we teleport them all inside. Then, using a mod called MC Command Center, I'm gonna make a few adjustments. First, I'm gonna make it so that bills auto pay. They won't pay the bills on their own. They can't access the mailbox. So if you turn bills on auto pay with a mod, you don't have to worry about the power turning off or the water shutting off. And that's one of those times again where like, yes, it might be kind of funny if the power and water get shut off, but if there's no lights, we can't see them. And also if they're uncomfortable because they can't shower or anything, then they won't woohoo, and we want them to woohoo. So we just use bills on autopay. I also use MC Woohoo to put risky woohoo up to 50%. So that means every time they woohoo, it's a 50-50 shot that somebody might get pregnant because I want babies to be born. I also turned on them being able to autonomously repair and also autonomously clean things more often. I found that that didn't actually really work, and I was having to come back and repair stuff myself. In an ideal world, they would just fix anything that's broken on their own. Like if the toilet breaks, they would just fix it. In my experience, the Sims were all refusing to fix stuff, but anytime a ghost would visit, like one of the previous Sims who had died, if they came back as a ghost and visited, the ghosts would fix stuff. So the dead people were really carrying in terms of replacing items. I did have to replace the speakers myself, because when the speakers break, even if they fix them, they don't turn the music back on. And I want the music to be on so that they can dance. So that was like the main thing that I had to do. I also had to replace anything that burnt because they can't replace burnt stuff themselves, but there weren't that many fires. That's a spoiler, but I'll show you in a minute too. This is what the room looked like with the pretty lights. Isn't that cool in the party room? Do you get the vibes now? Anyway, the last and probably most important thing is a special cheat to turn off pop-ups. Because the main concern everybody always has is like, oh my God, what are you gonna do when there's a pop-up and it pauses the game? There's actually a cheat to bypass all of the pop-ups. It's ui.dialog.auto_respond. And when you do that, it makes it so the game will automatically respond to any pop-up that happens. So think like those parenting skill ones where it's like, oh, your Sim's having a bad day at school. Should you call the principal or be nice to them? Or whatever, and you have to pick one and then it affects their manners or something. The game will just like click out of it. Basically, click yes, click the top option. Even when babies are born, with this cheat turned on, it bypasses that. It just like auto names the babies with asterisks and then they just show up in your household. So that way the game will never pause on its own. Unfortunately, to have that cheat enabled, you have to get a mod, which is so dumb, because the cheat used to exist and then they got rid of it. So you're gonna need Twisted Mexie's All Cheats mod. I'm gonna link all the mods that I'm using in the description box for you also. But once you've got that set up, there'll be no more pop-ups. I can prove it because when I try and click MC Command Center, nothing happens. It's not giving me the pop-up for the menu, and you can just type the same thing again to turn it back on, and then you can see pop-ups again. But that's how we did it. That's how I got everything to work. And now I wanna show you what actually happened over the course of these 24 hours because that's the real reason that you're here. And I also have the data from last year, so we can kind of compare what happened in the past couple of years. I'll link this spreadsheet down below for you in case you want to click through it yourself. But let's just start with like a big broad overview of the highlights of what happened. There were 4 different fires, 2 in the pizza oven, 1 on the stove, and 1 from the radio, which is kind of weird, but the radio broke and then caught fire while trying to be repaired. These were all kind of uneventful fires. All of them put themselves out. Nobody caught fire. Like there was nothing really bad that happened from any of them, which I was kind of disappointed by because a couple years ago, we had some really serious fire problems. I think it was when they first made fears, when fears were first added to the game. Once there's a fire, all your Sims get a fear of fire and then they would refuse to put the fires out. So they would all just kind of stand around staring at the fire and it would continuously spread. It would break everything. They would get trapped. But that hasn't happened in a couple of years. Last year, we also barely had any fires. In 2024, there were 6. 4 of them were the pizza oven and 2 were the stove. But again, nobody died, like nothing really went wrong. I feel like back in the day, the grills used to catch fire a ton, but in both of the past 2 years, the grills haven't caught fire at all. I'm pretty sure that they tuned it a little bit to make the fires a little bit less likely. And they also tuned the fears a little bit to hopefully help with it. So actually, I think it's a good sign for regular gameplay that fires are less buggy, but it's a bad sign for unpaused streams because less fires are happening and people aren't dying in them. The only reason that Sims were dying in them before is because they were glitching and just standing there and not doing anything about it. And so because that hasn't been happening, nobody's dying. Now, is that good or bad? It kind of depends. More exciting though, we had 18 different woohoos this time. 4 of those woohoos took place in the bush. Only 1 of them in the shower. There were 5 in the woohoo blanket from Lovestruck, 1 in the observatory that I ended up adding later on, and 6 of them were in the closet from Get Together. So honestly, a pretty good split between different places. I think there would have been a lot more woohoos if the sauna was not completely bugged. We kept seeing Sims like start to kiss, start to walk up together to the sauna, and then like glitch and just stand there in front of it. Almost as though the interaction got automatically canceled, which is obviously really bad because they were gonna woohoo probably at least like 5 or 6, 7 more times, but weren't able to complete the interaction a single time because sauna woohoo is bugged right now. That's actually a known issue. In In any of my saves, I have not been able to sauna woohoo for a while. So we were kind of frustrated and disappointed by that. I had kind of hoped that it would be better. I didn't realize it was going to be like stopping them from woohooing at all. Because for comparison, The Sims woohooed 28 times in 2024. So 10 less woohoos is a pretty significant difference. I think it's a mix of the sauna being glitched and also Love Struck being out. Love Struck came out right after I did this event last year. So this was our first time having Love Struck and like having it affect our Sims. A lot of people don't like Love Struck because of the constant relationship decay that it causes. And in the past, pre-Love Struck, we had no problems with that. Usually what I do is make a club from Get Together and I set up the activities to allow for autonomous woohoo and like autonomous romance. And I'll also put on the free love neighborhood action plan, which means that nobody gets jealous anymore. And that usually does it. Like everybody can woohoo just fine. I don't need to like pre-cheat romantic relationships together or anything. It always works out completely fine. But now with Love Struck, we were constantly hearing that romantic satisfaction starting and ending sound because it plays that music, you know? We would hear it basically nonstop. And then I would come in and I would check the game and nobody would have any pink relationship bar. So Love Struck, I think, really severely negatively impacted the Unpaused event. It's basically completely changed romance autonomy, but like maybe in a bad way. Definitely in a bad way for this. Debatable if it's good or bad for your own Sims gameplay. Personally, I like the idea of Love Struck affecting romance that way and like having to work harder to maintain your Sims romantic relationships, but it's also really annoying. And it's annoying to the point that I think next year when I do this again, I'm probably gonna disable Love Struck completely. I ended up disabling high school years too because the sounds of like the cheer event and the football event were really loud and very distracting. And I think I might disable Love Struck even though I'm gonna have to forfeit having the woohoo blanket. And I love the woohoo blanket. It was really funny watching them woohoo in that woohoo blanket. I just think that the romance decay is too negative and I don't think we can use it for this. Kind of skipping ahead for a second because we're talking about woohoo, there were 5 babies born out of those woohoos. There were a total of 4 pregnancies, which is actually kind of wild because there were 18 woohoos and only 4 pregnancies. But of course, some of those were like between 2 men, maybe like between a pregnant Sim who's already pregnant and somebody else so they can't get pregnant again. But the fairy and Vlad had a baby that everybody in the chat named Batwing. The Yeti and the alien fish had a baby that everybody in the chat named Fishstick. The clown and the shark had a baby that chat called Clark. And Seymour and the Yeti had twins like right at the end of the event that the chat called Frostbite and Shetty. They love a little ship name, the people in the chat. And this year we had 0 babies taken away. I know that might sound kind of sad because it would have been funny if a baby got taken away, but just for comparison, in 2024, we had 8 babies, but I did have Risky Woohoo at 55% that year, not 50. But of those 8 babies, 2 of them were taken away. And 2 babies getting taken away is actually really bad. So this year, us having 5 babies that we successfully cared for, I think actually points to the Sims maybe being better at caring for the babies. Because much like the fire incident, the reason the babies got taken away was because of glitches. The Sims were glitching, they were freezing, they were leaving them on top of the stairs, they were getting stuck. We had that glitch where like a baby would get stuck to a Sim and they would just like have them stuck to their hip. And then because they were stuck, nobody was feeding them and then they all got taken away. Now we did have babies get stuck once or twice, but it wasn't so bad that they were like actually starving. And I didn't have to fix it. Like they reset and fixed themselves and cared for them. So overall, I think the Sims actually did a better job of caring for the babies and also just staying alive in general this year. Not for any change in things that I did. The house is just as bad as it was last year. But this time we only had 3 deaths. 2 of them were in the sauna and then the third one was by a meteor strike. So let's talk about those real quick. Now this is our first time using life and death for one of these as well. And we actually had a few near-death experiences. That's one of those times where I was kind of worried about the pop-ups. But basically when this happens, a chase by death Sim almost dies, falls to the floor, looks dead, and then you usually get that call from Grim like, hey, that was a close call, you better watch out. Well, we don't get the calls because the pop-ups were turned off. So they would kind of just like flop on the floor and then stand back up. But poor Stanley got by his chase by death trait. So he died really quickly. And then I moved his grave and just like left it in the front yard. And later on in the stream, we started hearing this really loud sobbing. Bear in mind, we're kind of far away. Like all the Sims are inside the house through a wall. Doesn't look like there's a wall, but there is a wall because of the windows and we are outside. So we can't really hear their voices, they're talking because they're they're inside and we're outside. But we hear this extremely loud sobbing in our ears. I come back, I check on it. It's Vlad, not Eggplant Vlad. It's real Vlad, because Eggplant Vlad is like one that I moved into my house from the gallery and put in an eggplant costume. There's a normal Vlad just existing in the save. Well, normal Vlad had come to our house, tried to break in, couldn't break in because there's no door. And then he just stood there mourning Stanley's grave, sobbing about Stanley's grave right next to us. So I did what I had to do and I kidnapped real Vlad. And I just like shift click added him to my household. So all of a sudden I had Eggplant Vlad and real Vlad. And real Vlad died very fast right after that. Real Vlad was upstairs using the telescope and he got struck by a meteor, which is wild because it's the second year in a row that that has happened to him. In 2024, Vlad was the first death because he got struck by a meteor. It's a very rare death, and it's really strange that it happened to the same sim early on in the stream twice. But it was probably for the best because it meant that we didn't have two Vlads confusing everybody. I was pretty surprised that he didn't die from like burning or anything in the sun. And Eggplant Vlad never died either. He never burnt in the sun either. The third death was the Money Mouse, who unfortunately died in the sauna. Money Mouse again was chased by death. We had 3 Sims chased by death. The last one was the alien fish, and he never died. But I think if I had kept the sauna longer, he might have. But remember, I had to get rid of the sauna because it was glitching all the woohoos. So again, it's one of those like weird balancing acts with this where I want them to die, but I also want them to woohoo. And like, what do I care more about? But since we had 2 sauna deaths already, I was like, okay, we can take it away and put something else in its place. Nobody ended up dying after the Money Mouse did. In 2024, we had 5 deaths. Vlad died from a meteor strike. Vlad burnt in the sun because I revived him and then he died again. And then Seymour, Elphaba, and Bob Pancakes also all died from meteor strikes. But in 2024, I had put a bunch of telescopes and I left use telescope on as a club activity. So I was kind of like trying to get them to die from meteor strikes. It's really weird to me that that is by far the most common death in our unpaused events, because you would kind of expect it to be something more normal, like a fire, but instead it's them getting struck by meteors. One other kind of weird thing about that is the ghosts who die that way will get like randomly struck again, because we kept getting haunted by Vlad frequently, which was nice because he was like fixing stuff and cleaning, but because he was coming back to the house and haunting us a lot, it meant that we would sometimes see ghost Vlad get like randomly struck inside the house. So that ended up being a little bit scary, but it was fun. And while we're on the subject of Vlad, I also kept track of all the times that Vlad drank the blood of his friends. Real Vlad didn't make it in our house long enough to drink anybody's blood, but Eggplant Vlad lasted the entire time and he drank blood 5 times. He drank the clown's blood once, the Yeti's blood twice, and Hanley Stumfree's blood twice. Oh, and Hanley Stumfree. So I eventually added back another sim after real Vlad died. I wanted to have 8 sims again. So my friend Shella made this alternate universe version of Stanley Humphrey called Hanley Stumfree, who's like a different color hot dog suit. We played with the 2 of them together for this like Sims tournament that Twitch Rivals hosted. And so I replaced Stanley with his arch nemesis, Hanley Stumfree. So we had another hot dog sim in the household, and Vlad really liked Hanley. I guess the hot dog water was delicious. And the Yeti too, because he drank the Yeti twice. I guess the ice water was good. Nobody dies from drinking their blood. Nobody gets turned into a vampire from that either. It just makes them pass out when he drinks their blood. And speaking of things that do not kill Sims, I do have 2 cowplants. Every year I put 2 cowplants on this lot. To die from a cowplant attack, you have to eat the cowplant's cake twice within 24 hours while you still have the first moodlet. A sim will never autonomously do that. The only way to kill a sim by a cowplant is to actively have them eat the cake again. They'll eat the cake the first time themselves, but if you want them to die, you have to intervene and like eat the cake another time within that 24 hours. So nobody was ever gonna get eaten by a cowplant to kill them, unless maybe from chase by death, but it didn't happen. I do still put 2 cowplants because it's kind of fun for us in the chat to be like rooting for the cowplants. Everybody is like either team left or team right cowplant. And everybody just sits there hoping and hoping that somebody will come eat the cowplant cake. We're all like, please, somebody come feed Lefty. And unfortunately, both left and right cowplant did die. They did both get starved by our horrible sims in this household. And they died really early on. They both only got eaten once each and then died. Like so soon in the very beginning of the event. But I ended up putting more cowplants back, and so we had more later on. And the cowplants proceeded to get eaten 33 times total. Unfortunately, very very close to the end of the stream, like around the 22-hour mark, the right cowplant did die again. So the left cowplant won. But just in case you were curious who ate the cowplants the most, Ghost Stanley Humphrey, so dead Stanley, came back as a ghost. He ate it once. The Yeti and the fairy ate the cowplants 3 times each. The shark and the fish ate it 4 times each. The clown ate the cowplants 5 times. Hanley Stumpfree ate the cowplants 6 times. And Nancy Landgrab wins by eating the cowplants 7 times total. And Nancy was also a late addition. I added her last. After the Money Mouse died, I just went and grabbed a random sim and it ended up being Nancy. So Nancy came in like in the middle of the event and she still ate the cowplants the most out of everybody. We also ended up having 16 fights total. Now, this was really heavily impacted by me putting fighting on as a club activity. I only had fights on as an activity for like maybe 15 minutes total out of the entire stream. I started with fights being on and we instantly had like 8 within the first 5 minutes. Literally the second I unpaused this game, a bunch of fights broke out. And with a few of them, it was like 2 different fights happening at once in like one big pile. You couldn't even tell who was fighting. I have used that fight club activity doing this for years. I have never seen them fight like that. So it makes me think that maybe they tuned it somehow to make it more frequent, but it was so bad that I had to turn fights off from the club and I just left it off. Nobody fought for like 23.5 hours. And then right at the end of the stream, I put the fights back on as a club activity. Same thing happened. Everybody started fighting. We couldn't even keep track of it all, so I ended up turning it off again. But in that short time, there were 16 fights. That's more than 1 fight per minute. And weirdly, it was a pretty even split between who was fighting. The fairy and the clown fought the most with 5 times each. Vlad and the shark fought 4 times each. The mouse and the Yeti were also involved in a couple of fights, but less. And then nobody else fought a single time. So like Nancy Landgrab, Stanley, Hanley, none of them fought at all. In 2024, we only had 7 fights total, and I had fighting on the entire time, throughout the entire event. So it is really strange to me how different that was, despite me not changing anything. I mean, it is obviously different sims, but we still had a mix of traits and stuff. So something has definitely changed with fights specifically for the club activity. If I had left it on the entire time, I honestly think it would have been in the hundreds, because it happened so quick. We literally could not keep up. And then lastly, I also kept track of escapes on this spreadsheet, and we only had 2 of them. And when I say escaped, I mostly just mean that they glitched outside of the house, or at least some sort of glitch that's so bad that I had to come back and intervene and like reset them and teleport them back and fix it. The first time, the shark, I don't even know how, but the shark glitched outside and was just staring at us from the bedroom window. So I had to come back and teleport him back inside. And then the second time, the fairy had the toddler like glitch stuck to her hip, and she tried to get in bed, glitched out of the bed, and then got stuck behind the bed half in the wall. So I had to come back and reset her and teleport her back in too. In 2024, there were also only 2 glitches, but both of them were Vlad. Everybody is always really concerned about Vlad because he can teleport. They're like, oh my god, he's gonna teleport outside of the house. But in my experience, I almost always have Vlad in this household. I've never had him like Batwing teleport out of the home. The only times that he's glitched out of the house were when he was a ghost. And not because he was a vampire ghost, just because he was a ghost and the ghost like glitched through a wall, and it was a true glitch, not just like a teleportation thing. Overall, I would say that this year had significantly less glitches than last year. Last year, I literally did not sleep at all in the full 24 hours. I was like staring at my laptop, panicking. I was having chest pains because I was so stressed about the whole thing. I had to constantly keep resetting Sims and like closing the game and reopening it. This time, I willingly closed the game and reopened it 1 time, but I could have gotten away with never doing that. I just did it because I was like, they probably could use a little fresh reload. It's been open for a long time, but I didn't have to. I also only had to reset the 2 times. I barely had to replace anything. Like, I honestly think that if I hadn't been there and if I had just left it running on its own, it probably would have been okay. And I could not say the same for last year. Last year, the game was not cooperating. So that's actually a good thing. It was generally less chaotic. The Sims did a better job of surviving and caring for things. Honestly, the main issue was just them refusing to clean. I had trash cans everywhere. They wouldn't put any diapers in the trash. I had to keep coming back and moving them because the chat was getting upset. But overall, it was like fine. Everybody was fine. There were also some really funny moments throughout this stream. At one point after we finished killing one of my Sims, the Grim Reaper walked up and just like laid down on the towel in the fake beach, and he just like took a nap on the towel. They all got really high wellness skill because of the yoga mat and the meditation stool, so they could all like meditate and float in the sky. So we had like this levitating clown. They also all got really high dancing skill. The dancing was one of the highlights of this. So they'd usually be dancing inside of the party room or inside of the bathroom, and when your dancing skill gets up really high, they can do some kind of funny moves, one of which is a backflip. So sometimes they would succeed, like Nancy could do a flip, Haley would try and do it, he would fail and like completely face plant, sometimes more than one time in a row. The dancing really is always one of the best parts. There's something about Sims, they just love to autonomously dance. Even without you trying to intervene, they will be dancing. They also really like that video game mat. They use that thing a lot. I put on the Creepy Crawlies Lot challenge, which meant that we sometimes got attacked by like random bugs and random bats. So they'd just be like inside the house and bats would start swarming and attacking them. We were being haunted a lot by the ghosts, like I tried to tell you. So sometimes you would see the ghosts outside of the house. There's this one clip of the ghost Stanley just running past us, and all you can see is his head just like running by. Because I put that lounge chair outside on the top floor, everybody was sunbathing, and they were often sunbathing naked. So we had a lot of Sims running around the house naked for a long time. I used mods to make their naked outfits still their costume. So it would be like the Yeti costume, but with a little blur at the bottom. But you'd be seeing naked Sims everywhere nonstop. Because they would go and sunbathe naked and then just not put clothes on and run around for like 2 days straight. They literally wouldn't put clothes on again until they autonomously showered. And they would wait until the last possible minute to autonomously shower. They were gross. Everybody smelled bad. The house smelled bad. We had a couple really rough storms. I actually really liked that about it because it was good for like the ambient noise of the rain. But at one point, the woohoo bush got struck by lightning and just burned and like turned into nothing. So I did have to come back and fix the woohoo bush myself. I gave everybody like soccer balls, instruments, the clay, all that kind of stuff inside of their personal inventories, just so they would hopefully use them more often. And some people were like really good at playing with the soccer ball. So that was kind of fun to watch them do as well. Vlad did yoga in his eggplant costume a little bit too much for my liking. It was kind of creepy looking. There's just something about him in that costume that is so unnatural. Anybody else in it is fine, but it's because it's Vlad, it feels so wrong. At one point, I sent Dan upstairs to like fix some stuff for me, and Vlad died as he was there. So we were all joking that my husband Dan killed Vlad. It wasn't his fault, but it was kind of funny timing.
Oh my god.
And I mean, overall, everybody was just being so weird. They were like woohooing and then running away. They were yelling at each other. They were doing weird dance moves, weird fights, weird. It was just weird. The Sims were behaving very weird. But I think that's why it was fun. Would I do this again? I think probably. I've done it a bunch of times now. They've all turned out pretty differently, I think for different reasons, oftentimes because of new packs that have come out. So it is kind of interesting to experiment that way and see like how do these new expansion packs affect what we've done previously, because Life and Death kind of carried the deaths that we had. Almost everybody that died was chased by death, and Love Struck really negatively impacted how many woohoos we had. So it does kind of make you wonder, like, if we get new packs in the next year, how will they affect the game if I do this again in 2026? It is really hard for me to do these streams. I think partially it's just because I need to like grow up and get it together. I stress about it too much, knowing that it's live. I know it might seem like it's easy to just like, oh, let the game run and watch it and see what happens, but because I know that my stream is on and I'm not like actively sitting at my desk, I'll be downstairs. I was working on sending the letters for my charity event, and I'm just like downstairs staring at my laptop, watching my own stream from my computer that's upstairs, just waiting for like something to break or something to go wrong. And this year, I don't even want to bring this up because it's so horrible, but my grandma died the morning that I did this stream, and I didn't want to cancel it because I didn't want to let anybody down, because people have been looking forward to this all year. But it was truly like one of the worst days of my life, and I streamed the full 24 hours of it. Like, how messed up is that? At least it wasn't on camera, so in a way it might have been a good stream to have been that day because I didn't have any pressure to be on as much. It makes me have like a negative association with it, even though like The Sims being unpaused didn't kill my grandma. Cancer killed my grandma. It's just very unfortunate timing that that happened on the same day. I have made videos like this before where I like break down all of the things that happen in these unpaused streams, so I can link them down below for you in case you want to go back and watch to compare. I'm also going to link my Twitch stream down below in case you want to watch that. I have been streaming every single day all month oftentimes more than once a day for the entire month of May, while also still uploading daily on YouTube, might I add, because I just care so deeply about this fundraiser that I'm doing. It means the world to me, and we are almost done with it. So if you would like to come by and support, I'm gonna link our fundraiser for St. Jude down below too. Also, if you have any suggestions for next year for like rooms that we should add, items that we should add, bear in mind, a lot of things that seem fun end up actually not working. I gave the example earlier of the Murphy bed, but things like the dumpster, nobody uses it. It's so sad. But if you've got any ideas for things that we haven't done yet that might be kind of fun for us to test out and experiment with, let me know down below. Thank you for watching, and I'm gonna catch you all tomorrow. Okay, bye everybody. You know what is so cursed? I had that list of the cast at the top of the spreadsheet, and I was just crossing people off when they died. Like, how messed up is that? You just get crossed off and immediately replaced after this traumatic thing happens to you.